The human spirit, when untouched by life's chaos, shines with a brilliance that cannot be measured. In its natural form, it is complete, boundless, and interwoven with everything that breathes and exists, but life rarely lets us pass through unscathed. With every experience, good, bad, or unimaginable, we sometimes lose something along the way. Not in a physical sense, but energetically. This subtle unraveling of our inner being is known by many names across cultures, but in essence, it is the shattering of the soul into fragments, and though you can't see it with the naked eye, you can feel its absence, the sense that something vital within you has slipped through your fingers. Picture your soul as a polished mirror, perfectly capturing who you truly are. When hardship strikes, whether through emotional devastation, physical trauma, or spiritual betrayal, this mirror doesn't just get scratched, it fractures. Some shards remain, holding parts of your identity and memory, but others drift away, buried deep in the subconscious or scattered across the fabric of unseen dimensions. What's left behind still functions, but never at full strength. Like a symphony missing half its instruments, the melody of your life plays on, but something is undeniably off. This scattering isn't just poetic, it's experiential. When your soul fragments, the consequences are tangible. The world can feel colder, relationships feel hollow, and joy becomes harder to access. Something feels out of place, something within you feels incomplete, and no matter how much you search externally, through success, love, adventure, it remains unresolved. Many of these soul fractures stem from moments of overwhelming pain. When we face events that push us beyond what our psyche can process, a protective mechanism kicks in. In order to survive the moment, parts of us break away from the whole, hiding themselves in silence. For instance, a child surrounded by emotional abandonment may not have the tools to comprehend or heal from that ache. So instead, a part of that child's soul quietly slips away, numbing the feeling just enough to keep going. That same child might grow into an adult who feels a void they can't quite name, a missing link that refuses to be found. Trauma, however, is not the only sculptor of fragmentation. There are far more subtle yet just as insidious forces at play. Psychological manipulation, cultural programming, and institutional control can slowly chip away at a person's spiritual integrity. When you are told over and over that you are broken, flawed, undeserving of love or salvation, it doesn't just wound your self-esteem, it carves into your soul. Over time, you may begin to disown parts of yourself just to feel safe or accepted in a world that demands conformity. In doing so, you hand over pieces of your essence. This is not healing, it is spiritual attrition. Toxic relationships are often breeding grounds for this disintegration. Whether it's a lover, a parent, or even a mentor, when you constantly have to abandon who you are to keep the peace or avoid conflict, you start bleeding soul energy. You trade authenticity for safety, and in that trade, something priceless is lost. You don't always notice when it happens. It might be a single moment when you decided not to speak your truth, or 1,000 micro decisions where your silence was a shield. By the time you realize it, the emptiness has already set in, and the echoes of yourself no longer sound familiar. The layers of soul fragmentation do not confine themselves to this lifetime alone. Many people carry spiritual injuries from other chapters of existence, lifetimes they don't consciously remember, but energetically relive. These past life echoes can ripple into the present with uncanny accuracy. You might recoil at certain faces or places without explanation. Patterns of heartbreak or betrayal may revisit you like recurring nightmares. These aren't just coincidences, they are signals, clues that some part of your soul may still be trapped in an unfinished story, waiting for closure that never arrived. Those who carry these kinds of wounds often feel like something crucial is missing, but can't describe what. It's not always sadness. Sometimes it's numbness, the absence of emotion itself. You may find it hard to access passion, joy, or even grief. Your emotions become distant, like whispers through a closed door. You want to feel, but something blocks you. That wall. It's made of lost parts of you, buried memories and energies tucked away in places you've never dared to revisit. This emotional silence isn't accidental. When a part of your soul detaches, it often takes the emotion tied to the trauma with it. That's why some people struggle to recall major parts of their past, especially the darker parts. The memory may still be in the mind, but the emotional imprint, the part that truly registers the impact, is missing because it lives elsewhere, in an unvisited corner of your soul. The aftermath of fragmentation is not just emotional, it's energetic. A person with a fractured soul radiates differently. Instead of a full, vibrant frequency, they emit scattered signals. And just as predators can sense a limping animal, there are people and even entities that are drawn to this scattered energy. They sense the gaps, the lack of cohesion, and they move in. Some do it consciously, others unconsciously. But either way, the result is manipulation. When you're disconnected from your own power, you become vulnerable to forces that wish to feed off your light. This is why some people seem to always end up in destructive cycles, no matter how hard they try to break free. It's not that they are weak, it's that they are incomplete, and you cannot fight a battle with only part of your spirit present. You cannot build a life or a dream or a future when pieces of your soul are still missing from the room. One of the least understood consequences of soul fragmentation is the dimming of your ability to shape your life. Every person is born with an innate gift, the ability to create, to influence, to bring into being the life they envision. This is not wishful thinking, it's energetic truth. But manifestation requires wholeness. When your soul is divided, your intent lacks coherence. It's like trying to sculpt clay with only 2 fingers. You might still shape something, but it won't be what it could have been. When you look around and wonder why things aren't working, why your dreams feel just out of reach, why success seems to come in short bursts that never last, sometimes the answer is not strategy or effort, it's energetic. Your soul is trying to operate at full throttle with only half its parts, and the world reflects that back to you. The good news is this state is not permanent. There is a way to reclaim what was lost. The path is called soul retrieval, a process of reaching into those shadowy corridors of memory, trauma, and forgotten pain and calling your spirit home. This work is not light or simple. It asks you to see what you've tried to forget, to feel what once broke you, to forgive what never said sorry. But the reward is profound, the return of your essence. When you begin calling back your soul, something remarkable happens. Life begins to move differently. You no longer feel at the mercy of external circumstances. Your emotions come alive again, not in chaos but in richness. Love doesn't scare you. Purpose no longer eludes you. You stop searching for yourself in other people's eyes because you finally recognize your own reflection. Once wholeness returns, the energy shifts. You start vibrating with power that can't be faked. You attract people and experiences that match your highest frequency. The void you once felt is gone, replaced by a quiet certainty. You are no longer fragmented. You are fire returned to flame. You are your own gravity, pulling every lost part back into orbit. And then comes the remembering, not just of who you are, but of what you are. A multidimensional being woven from emotion, thought, flesh, and spirit. Each part essential, each layer sacred. This understanding marks the beginning of deeper healing, because wholeness is not the destination. It is the starting point of everything you were born to become. Beyond the physical world and its tangible structures lies a more intricate reality, one woven from sensations, feelings, and the invisible movements of energy. At the heart of this invisible realm is the emotional body, a subtle layer of your being that holds the imprint of every feeling you've ever had. It's not just a response mechanism, it's a reservoir, a living, breathing field of vibrations that shape your perception of reality. When this field is calm and balanced, the world feels safe, meaningful, and alive. But when it's overloaded with unprocessed pain or entangled in past sorrows, it distorts everything, making even moments of joy feel like illusions. The emotional body is where much of your energetic weight is stored. It is the space where grief rests long after a loss, where anger simmers from betrayals that were never healed, and where shame clings to memories you thought were buried. These emotions don't simply vanish over time. Left unattended, they root themselves into your field, influencing every choice you make without your conscious awareness. And while you may believe you've moved on from certain chapters, your emotional body often remains stuck in those very pages, rereading pain you no longer want to feel. Every intense experience creates a mark in this layer. Think of your emotional body as water. Whatever drops into it creates ripples. Some of these ripples fade quickly, while others keep circling outward, influencing the surface long after the original event is gone. If you were deeply hurt as a child, ignored, punished, or made to feel invisible, those emotions may still be reverberating inside you. They don't just sit there. They color your relationships, affect your ability to trust, and even shape your identity. And unless they are released, they act like hidden scripts, directing your life from behind the curtain. One of the most powerful forces stored in this body is emotional memory. You may not recall the exact words someone said to you, but you'll remember the way they made you feel. That emotional imprint is often stronger than facts. It's why a song, a scent, or a glance can suddenly bring tears to your eyes. The emotional body holds those moments tightly, not to punish you, but to protect you. It wants you to stay safe, but sometimes its protection becomes a prison. In trying to avoid more pain, you also block out joy, vulnerability, and intimacy. Many people don't realize how much their current emotional state is haunted by energies that don't even belong to this lifetime. The emotional body, unlike the physical, doesn't recognize the boundary of time. It carries echoes from before your birth, from other timelines, other identities. A betrayal suffered centuries ago can still echo today as mistrust in a perfectly loving relationship. A violent ending in another incarnation may now show up as a fear of sudden loss. These aren't irrational, they're unresolved. There are also cords, energetic ties that link your emotional field to other people. Some are beautiful, formed from mutual love and respect, but others are toxic. They feed off your energy, keeping you tethered to individuals long after you've walked away. You may wonder why you still think about someone who hurt you years ago. It's because part of your emotional body is still entangled with theirs, locked in a loop that needs to be broken. This field is also highly sensitive to external manipulation. Those who understand emotional energy, be they media strategists, spiritual predators, or narcissistic individuals, know that the fastest way to weaken someone is to target their feelings. Fear, guilt, and shame are not just unpleasant emotions, they are weapons. When wielded effectively, they create emotional disarray, which leads to energetic vulnerability. That's why so much of what we consume, from advertising to news, is designed to provoke these feelings. It keeps your frequency low, your soul scattered, and your choices reactive. And then there's suppression. Our modern world doesn't leave much room for emotional honesty. From childhood, we are taught to hide our tears, silence our rage, and put on a smile no matter what we're going through. But feelings that aren't expressed don't disappear. They embed themselves deeper into your emotional body. Over time, this builds energetic congestion, a kind of spiritual inflammation that affects not only your mood, but your health. Physical illness is often the final language through which your emotions speak when they've been ignored for too long. To truly heal the emotional layer, you must enter it, not as a warrior, but as a witness. You must be willing to see your own patterns without judgment, to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Where did this begin? What am I carrying that is no longer mine to hold? This is not about reliving trauma, but about releasing the grip it has on your current identity. There are many pathways into this inner work. Breath work allows suppressed energy to rise and dissolve. Deep meditation helps uncover buried emotional knots. Energy healers can guide you through the process of untangling cords and releasing stuck frequencies. But perhaps the most powerful tool is stillness, the quiet, sacred space where you simply allow yourself to feel. Not fix, not rationalize, just feel. Because what the emotional body needs most is presence. When you stop avoiding your emotions, they stop chasing you. Once healing begins, the transformation is unmistakable. You feel lighter, not just emotionally, but physically. Your nervous system calms, relationships soften. Life begins to feel less like survival and more like harmony. You move from reaction to intention. You stop needing to be validated because you've reclaimed your emotional center. It no longer lives in someone else's hands, but your emotional body is only one layer. Interwoven with it is the realm of thought, the mental body. This is the layer that interprets, filters, and assigns meaning to your experience. If the emotional body is the heart of your energetic system, the mental body is its mind. It is the storyteller, the voice that narrates your life, often without you realizing it. And that voice has been shaped since birth. Your thoughts didn't appear in a vacuum. They were constructed piece by culture, language, religion, and family dynamics. Your beliefs about love, money, power, and even your own worth were handed to you long before you had the capacity to question them. Some of these ideas empower you. Others quietly sabotage you every single day. The thoughts you entertain most frequently form mental pathways, grooves in the brain and energy field that determine your reality. This is not metaphorical. Every thought you think produces a frequency. That frequency creates resonance, and over time, resonance becomes form. It becomes the life you wake up to. This is why people who constantly think they're not good enough often find themselves in situations that reinforce that belief, not because the world is cruel, but because the mind is a magnet that attracts what it believes. This mechanism works both ways. It means that empowering beliefs create empowering outcomes. The challenge is that most people never consciously choose what they believe. Their mental body is running old programs, outdated ideas, second-hand truths that were never examined. Imagine using a computer with corrupted software and wondering why it keeps crashing. That's what happens when your mind is filled with limiting beliefs. The subconscious is the deepest layer of this mental construct. It's the silent operator working behind the scenes to filter your experiences and guide your responses. You might think you're making a decision based on logic, but often it's the subconscious pulling the strings. And where did it get its instructions? From the experiences you couldn't process, from the things you were told repeatedly, from childhood events, from ancestral fears, from collective trauma. It stores it all without your permission. Breaking free from this programming doesn't happen by force. You can't outthink your subconscious. You have to rewire it. This is where affirmations, hypnosis, shadow work, and deep visualization come in. These tools bypass the surface mind and reach the operating system. They allow you to install new beliefs, not borrowed from others, but chosen by you. They help you return to your original thoughts, the ones aligned with your soul, not your conditioning. The more coherent your mental body becomes, the clearer your path gets. You stop getting pulled into drama, fear, or endless loops of self-doubt. You begin to create from a place of alignment, not confusion. You see reality for what it is, not a prison, but a canvas. And your thoughts? They are the brush strokes. But perhaps the most powerful shift of all is the realization that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, the observer, the eternal presence that watches the thoughts rise and fall like waves. This awareness is your true mind, the spiritual mind, and when you access it, you unlock the gateway to the final body, the energy that breathes life into everything else. Beneath the layers of flesh, emotion, and thought lies a current that gives life to everything you are. It has no shape, no edges, no weight, yet it holds the totality of your existence. This is the spiritual body, the unseen essence that connects you to everything beyond what your eyes can see. While your physical form anchors you to earth, your spiritual body stretches out like roots into the unseen, tapping into dimensions your mind cannot fully comprehend, but your soul remembers. This body is not limited by time, nor is it bound by location. It moves through lives, carries wisdom across incarnations, and holds the record of your entire journey as a soul. When your spiritual body is vibrant and whole, you feel deeply connected, not just to people but to life itself. Trees speak, silence becomes sacred, synchronicities guide you. But when this body is ignored, damaged, or suppressed, a strange kind of emptiness emerges, a spiritual hunger. You may have food, shelter, even love, but still feel starved for something you can't name. This disconnection isn't random. It is the result of a long erosion, sometimes subtle, sometimes violent. Throughout history, many systems have been designed not to feed the spiritual body, but to silence it. Religions that once served as gateways to divine connection have often become institutions of control. Practices meant to bring people closer to Source have, in some cases, turned into rituals of shame and fear. You were told to look outside for salvation, to obey rather than inquire, to fear rather than seek. Over time, this separated countless souls from their direct connection to the divine within them. The spiritual body cannot thrive on fear. It cannot expand in a system where doubt is rewarded and intuition is dismissed. It wilts when you abandon your inner voice for the noise of external authority. Every time you betray your deeper knowing to please others or fit in, you weaken this energetic field. And when enough of these betrayals accumulate, the connection to your higher self begins to fade. You start to question your worth. You lose trust in your path. You forget that you are sacred. But forgetting doesn't mean the connection is gone. The divine part of you never leaves. It simply waits, silently, patiently, for your return. This return is not marked by grand ceremonies or cosmic visions. It often begins in the quietest moments. A breath, a whisper, a pull in your chest, reminding you that you are more than your job, your name, or your story. That you came here not just to survive, but to awaken. Reconnecting to the spiritual body means honoring all of your being, not just what the world approves of. It means embracing the unseen, trusting in what you feel even when there's no proof. It means allowing mystery back into your life. Not the kind that creates confusion, but the kind that evokes wonder. That moment when you realize that stars above you are older than your body, but not older than your soul. Your spiritual body also acts like a compass. When aligned, It pulls you toward truth like gravity. You just know when something feels off, even if it looks good on paper. You sense the energy behind words, the integrity behind actions. You begin to move differently, not out of fear or ambition, but out of resonance. And the more you follow this resonance, the more magnetic you become. You stop chasing and start attracting, not because you're manipulating energy, but because you're embodying it. There's also an intelligence to this field, a knowing that doesn't come from books or theories. It's the part of you that speaks through dreams, intuition, and moments of inexplicable clarity. The voice that says, "Don't go there," without needing a reason. The nudge that leads you to a person who changes your life. The message that comes when you least expect it, but most need it. This is your spiritual body in action, communicating in the language of energy and timing. When your spiritual body is strong, you feel safe even in uncertainty. You realize that life is not a series of accidents, but a living dialogue between your soul and the universe. Challenges no longer feel like punishments. They become initiations, invitations to grow, to let go, to trust more deeply. Pain still exists, but it doesn't define you. You begin to see life from the mountaintop rather than from the valley. Perspective becomes your power. But just like the other bodies, the spiritual field can carry wounds. These are not always dramatic or visible. Sometimes they're subtle, quiet doubts, forgotten dreams, unspoken grief. You may have once believed in magic, only to be mocked or dismissed. You may have felt the presence of something greater, only to be told you were imagining things. Each time your spiritual truth was invalidated, a little piece of it may have receded, not destroyed, just withdrawn, waiting for a safer space to be welcomed back. Healing the spiritual body often begins with remembering, not in the sense of recalling facts, but in the act of remembering, bringing the pieces of yourself back into unity. It involves letting go of ideas that were never truly yours, releasing borrowed beliefs, dissolving inherited fears. It's about clearing the fog of programming so the light of your essence can shine through. This process is deeply personal. For some, it may involve prayer or meditation. For others, movement or sound. The form is not what matters, the intention is. What matters is creating sacred space in your life, time that is not dictated by obligation but by soul rhythm, silence that is not empty but full of presence, rituals that are not repetitive tasks but doorways to meaning. And when you give this space to yourself, your spiritual body responds, your intuition sharpens, your dreams become more vivid. You start to receive signs, not because you're looking for them, but because you're finally able to see them. Life becomes a mirror, reflecting the energy you carry. And as that energy becomes more coherent, so does your experience. All four bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, are interconnected. You can't fully heal one without touching the others. A pain in the body may stem from an emotional wound. A limiting belief may come from spiritual disconnection. A recurring emotion may be tied to a physical imbalance. Healing is not a linear path. It's a spiral. You revisit layers again and again, each time with more awareness, each time going deeper. This is why true transformation requires holistic attention. It's not enough to meditate if your body is starving. It's not enough to eat clean if your thoughts are toxic. It's not enough to read spiritual texts if your emotions are in turmoil. You must tend to every part of you, not perfectly, but intentionally. Like a gardener who doesn't force the flower to bloom, but creates the conditions for it to thrive. As you begin to heal, you'll notice subtle shifts. Your energy feels fuller, your decisions feel cleaner, You no longer carry the weight of every conversation or the burden of constant comparison. You find joy in simple things, a breeze, a look, a moment of stillness. Life stops rushing past you. It begins to meet you, moment by moment, breath by breath. And in this meeting, something remarkable happens. You remember why you came here, not just to work, achieve, or perform, but to evolve, to feel, to express, to awaken. You realize that your life is not an accident, nor is your pain. Every detour, every heartbreak, every delay was a part of the unfolding, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to strip away what was never truly yours and reveal the essence that cannot be broken. You were never meant to live in fragments. You were born whole. Life may have cracked you, but it also gave you the tools to rebuild. And in that rebuilding, you don't just return to who you were. You rise into who you're meant to become. A being of light housed in form. A soul with memory, vision, and purpose. A creator. A healer. A mirror of the divine. This is the journey back to yourself, not the self others told you to be, but the self that burns beneath all masks, the one who knows, the one who remembers, the one who lives fully awake. And now, with every part reclaimed, you walk forward, not as a seeker, but as someone who has found. Not because you arrived at a destination, but because you remembered the truth that was always inside you. You are whole, you are sacred, and you were never truly lost.